So here's a quick rundown of my DIY motion platform that I made for my rollers. I'll just kind of go through a couple of the major points. No real big details on construction, but enough that you can kind of see what I came up with. And if you have any questions, feel free to post those. And I'll answer those and potentially share bigger details when needed if somebody wants to try and build their own. Essentially, started out with 1x2 material for the majority of this frame here. The center to center spacing on the outside is the same as what you'll see on the rollers here in a bit. Just a center structure here, H shape, so that I can have adjustment points for the springs, which you'll see in a minute. 1x4s on the end, and so it's just a nice light frame like this. And then I've actually installed some cut sections of black ABS pipe on there, and these become the rails that the rollers sit in and move back and forth on the motion platform. So that's essentially the base itself. The sled is similar construction, primarily all 1x2 material. 2 rails down the sides with a couple of spacers mounted in the middle there and on the ends, and those end up becoming the locations where the feet for the rollers end up mounting. A couple of eye hooks in there for retention on the bungees, and you just simply line that up with the rollerblade wheels in the middle, just bolted through both sides, washer in the middle so they spin freely. And then you just start by installing the springs, the bungees in this case, on both of the centering hooks there, and it takes some experimentation to figure out what kind of centering force you want on those. This is a refined model, so I don't have as many positions, but when I was playing with this, I ended up moving those positions back and forth, as well as trying a number of different bungees to give me the force that felt right. So I don't know what the magic number is, it just takes a little bit of experimentation. But so you get your base, the motion sled, and then the trainer itself, the rollers in this case, that goes on top of that. And I made it so I can quickly install and remove the rollers, so if I want to use them separately without the motion sled, I can do that. And once it's all on there, a little more mass from the rollers on there, you can see that there's just a little bit of motion back and forth that's settled by the springs. One of the first attachments I made was these outside centering wheels, or the wheels that are made to prevent it from riding off. Just some bent steel, made a cardboard template first, and then figured out how high in the position I wanted, and then bent the actual steel to match the cardboard. Drilled a hole and just mounted a rollerblade wheel on there. So there's one on both ends, and that just allows you to ride all the way to the edge of the rollers without actually falling off. Works really well. I made a large deck and mounted it in the center here so that you can mount and dismount a lot easier than trying to catch just the narrow tubing on the side, which seems to be pretty common with rollers. So this is just a nice easy platform to catch anytime you want to get on or off of it. So this structure here is all 2x2 material, and what it actually is the support for the adjustable resistance. So I just made that so I can collapse it and then install it and set it up, break it down easily so it's not as large with this tall mast here that ends up supporting the shifter at the very top of it there. So I used an old 9-speed Shimano XT mountain bike shifter that I had left over as a broken part. And you'll see where this connects to the actual magnetic resistance unit in a minute, but essentially I have full control using either shifter to go all the way through 9 separate settings on the magnetic resistance, and you can go one at a time with the paddle, or this one allows multi-shifts. Single on that trigger there, and then you can do a bunch at one time here. So you'll see what each one of those controls in the back. Essentially, this makes it harder with every click, which is nice, so you can hit it just one at a time, and then you can go easier with this, up to 4 clicks per. So with just 3 quick swings there, you can get to the end of the adjustment very easily. So on the back, I've mounted the Cyclops brand magnetic resistance bar. It happens to line up really nicely with these Nashbar rollers. Then on that, they normally have just a 5-position round dial that you have to get off the bike and change manually. And I didn't want to do that, so I rigged up off of the end of that an extra bar here and then connected it to that cable on the shifter, made a cable stop here. So from that shifter you saw earlier, I can make fine-tune adjustments and actually move the shifter, or move the magnetic resistance unit with the shifter to those 9 separate positions. And essentially with any one of these, as the magnets get closer to that aluminum drum, it causes that to slow down and actually increase the resistance. So with the bike loosely on the rollers like that, you can go ahead and step up on a platform. It is a little wobbly, obviously, because of that, so you want to be a tad careful when you're trying to actually mount up on the bike. I tend to lock the brakes a little bit, get one foot in, and then start off on the rollers. You'll see then that basically any little bit of movement I have forward or backward in the torso or shoulders, even while seated, ends up making that sled move ever so slightly back and forth. And the little motion of pedaling has that small oscillation. So just like any other rollers, you can shift to increase or decrease your resistance and your wheel speed. But additionally, with my system, I can go from the easiest, 1 gear harder each time, all the way up to the max. I'm still in the smaller ring at the moment, and go all the way up into my high gear. And there's a pretty high resistance level there with that magnetic unit maxed all the way out. And very quickly, you can reduce that without changing gears on the bike. So you've got a pretty wide range available for resistance changes. And again, the real reason that the motion rollers are nice is for standing efforts. So grab a couple gears, get up out of the saddle, and trying this on regular rollers is a lot more difficult without the motion platform. And you can even get into more aggressive sprint efforts out of the saddle and even in the saddle. Increase the resistance a bunch. Get into that slow climbing cadence. Of course, I got the rollers, the wheels on both sides, so it makes it kind of fun to bounce back and forth and see how close you can get to them.